everyone. My name is Jean Gallagher, and welcome. Welcome to show number 4, Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better, where we explore the importance of the outdoors and maintaining life balance. And through this series, we'll be talking to women business owners to understand their journey. And today, I'm excited to introduce Pamela Jay. Hi, Pamela.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. And Pamela is the founder of She Leads from the Heart initiative. She's a feminine leadership mentor, award-winning author, and a voice confidence coach for women who know they are born to lead. So I'm so excited to have you here today.
It is such a pleasure. Anyone who loves nature as much as you do is a friend of mine immediately.
Oh, thank you. We actually met through a joint contact that introduced us both. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'd like to really start out with give us a little bit of a background of your. I want to cover a few things today. I want to cover your story because it's really, really so impactful. And I'll touch on a little bit. When we talked last Friday, there was just a moment that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm talking to you this week. So give us some background, and I'm going to interject a few things as we go.
Okay, great. Background about my business or background about
A
how
little bit about, well, actually both. So if you'd like to start on a little bit about you yourself and how you have come to what your journey was and how you received where you are today.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for this opportunity. It's just always wonderful to share. I actually, my connection with the natural world started when I was very young, and I'm sure that most children, at least of my generation and yours, I guess we're
where yes, ours.
Yes, are can probably say that, and I just think that is a connection that has carried me throughout my life. So I have in all my work experiences have been reconnecting people and nature in some way, encouraging them to get outside, to remember to play, to imagine, to just have that love of the natural world. And I was a farmer for many years. I'm an Indiana girl, and I farmed for over 20 years. So I had a 1,200-acre farm and 2 little boys. And, we just grew all of our own food and food for many other people as well. So it was that connection in that. And at 38, though, I became ill. I was stricken with Crohn's disease. And I was to have a portion of my intestines removed. And I was really struggling with how I was going to give my husband that news when I wandered off to an abandoned grain silo on our farm and was actually having a big cry because it's like, this is going to change everything. And how is this possible? And I had been in so much pain, and medications were seeming to make me even sicker, really. So whatever inspired me in that moment to begin to sing in a grain silo that was abandoned and open to the sky turned out to be just a magical thing, because the sound of my own singing voice coming off of that stone silo felt like warm butter just washing over me. And I just had this inner knowing that my illness was a messenger, and it was here to help me to realize that I needed to slow down and really take a good look at who I was and why was I trying to be all things to all people, and all of those kinds of things we look at when we're in that situation. And so I went off my medications secretly. I don't always recommend doing that for everyone, but it worked for me. And I began immersing myself in nature. I returned to it like I had as a child, where I would sit along the riverbanks and watch the river and mimic the mourning doves and just really deepen that connection with the trees. And I began to just do things intuitively, like I would bury myself in the sand on the sandbar. It felt good to my achy body. And of course, now that's called earthing. And when I was wandering in the woods, I was forest bathing, but I knew nothing about any of this other than I just loved the natural world. And 12 weeks later, they could find no sign of my illness.
That's really interesting. And you had mentioned when we talked on Friday about repression, right? So
Mhm.
can you tell me a little bit about that and in how that also plays a part?
Yes, I came to see that I believe the reason that I got ill was that I had stuffed some of my natural gifts. I had to quit college and give up a music career when my mother got ill as a teenager, and I went home and then things happened in our family, and I ended up taking a leadership role in the family.
Mm.
And so I put my music away for 20 years. I did not sing for 20 years. So naturally, singing in a grain silo would have unlocked a lot of that grief and sadness and sorrow that I had stuffed away for so many years. And I believe that repression of that, and then of course the expression of it
Mhm.
became then the healing, and my body knew what to do, right? And return to its own natural state when I
And I
could.
would think too, what about the vibration?
Oh, yes, it's all about that. And again, I didn't know anything about vibrational healing. And gosh, now I've been studying this now for 30 years. It's like, wow, how's that possible? And how can something like that occur? And then you find quotes from Edgar Casey, and he says, music and sound are the medicine of the future. And you go, oh, okay, yes. So yes, the vibration of that, right? It helps to stimulate our hearts and our cells in our body and
Mhm.
reawaken them to their natural state. Makes sense,
Mhm.
right?
It does, it does. But it's nothing that you would have self-diagnosed.
No, not at
Mhm.
all. Not at
So
all.
how long a process was it for you through the beginning of being diagnosed to, you said there was a how many week period when you went back to the doctor that you
It was
were, there was no sign?
12,
12
yeah, 12
weeks.
weeks from the silo experience. And I had been ill for quite some time and lost an incredible amount of weight. And I was having daily uh, uh, cramping and
Mm.
a lot of pain and that sort of thing. But I was also having severe migraines, and I believe those were caused by the medication, and they had changed and tried some different ones. But nature was my medicine.
Mhm.
And the singing was a way that activated that. And then my intuition that I was wise enough to follow just led me to these beautiful practices that that are either ancient or we're just discovering now, right? Isn't that beautiful?
Exactly. And so after you became Crohn's free, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
what was the progression for you, and how did that change what you were doing on the? Did it change what you were doing on the farm, or how did it change your daily life?
It did. And thank you. That's a beautiful, beautiful question. Of course, I had slowed down,
Mhm.
but I really, well, I had some big, big changes in that I had healed naturally. So suddenly I was no longer able to support an agribusiness that was doing crop dusting and spraying all the fields with chemicals and all these sorts of things. I became ultra sensitive to those sorts of things. But
Mhm.
I also decided I wanted to take a positive approach and not just become an angry activist about it all, because that wasn't good energy in my belly either.
Mhm.
So I decided to open a natural arts learning center on another farm across the river. And
Mhm.
I began doing organic farming and began to bring children from the neighboring schools for nature appreciation, hiking, and poetry writing. And I founded that organization. It was a nonprofit, and I did that for 12 years and did over 30 different creative programs around the arts and helping people of all ages actually reconnect with their natural gifts
Mhm.
and learn the beauty and the importance of being connected to the natural world.
Wow. Wow. So that started on a smaller scale and it grew, or what
It did.
was there a vision that you had, or was it really just something that naturally developed?
Well, it actually came in a vision in poetry I would write after my healing. in the middle of the night. I don't even think I told you that piece, but
No, I don't think we talked about it.
my creativity absolutely just blossomed. If you can imagine, all those years of repressing, and then suddenly it's just like, whoa, all this expression comes out. So I began to be a poet, and I became a singer-songwriter in that time. And I'd never written music in my life. Went on to be a national award-winning children's singer-songwriter. That was not in my plan.
Oh my word.
No, and so the Learning Center was a vision literally given to me in somewhat of a dream. And I was told that it would be grown very organically with a philosophy that I was to call RIMBY, RIMBY, right in my backyard.
Aha.
Was really fun because back in that day there was a saying called NIMBY. Everyone
NIMBY, yes, not in my backyard.
Not in my backyard. And I said, oh no, we're going to take a positive approach. And so it was all about servant leadership, community service, and instead of Build It, They Will Come, which was very popular back then because Field of Dreams, the movie, had just come out not long after that. And so we spun that around and says, oh no, they will come and build it. And so the community came and built it. And we were a bit ahead of our time. It was when repurposing really wasn't a thing yet. And so that was the rule. It was everything had to be donated or found. And we did some really fun and funky creative things with that. Old rusty farm implements that were back in a junk pile, we welded and made into a beautiful, beautiful fence that was interactive so people could learn about farm history.
Oh, wow.
There was just so much fun and joy in all of it. And I realized that we were impacting not just children, but the grown-ups that came. And they were having these moments of what I call rememberings, where they remember a time in their life when they weren't rushing about so much like I had been before I was born. And that is what inspired me then to do the next phase of my business after I closed my Learning Center.
That's amazing. So before we get to that part, one of the things that I'm noticing is interesting because honestly, you were in a farming business that was technically outdoors, right? And so, but it wasn't in a healthy manner. So even though you were experiencing the outside and that was part of your daily life, it really wasn't what was going to bring the positiveness to you.
Yes. And I have so much respect. I was a soil and water conservation supervisor too before I got ill. And on the plant a tree committee, I was doing all of these things around the environment. And you have to remember, this was back, I first got ill in 1992. So our farm had come through the 80s when the farm almost foreclosed, as many farms did back then. And Roundup was like the savior. It was like the chemical that was introduced that was going to increase our yields, and everyone was so excited. And so I have this enormous, enormous empathy for those who farm, and only about 2% of our population in our country do. But I love the ones who are finding creative ways to bring back the life in the soil and farm more organically. I was very conflicted, though, as you can imagine. And of course, my husband and I ended up parting ways, still friends, but very, very different ways of looking at this. This was his family's 6th-generation farm.
Wow. Wow.
Which would have started organically, right?
Exactly. The pre-Roundup farm.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so as we're talking through, if anyone is listening and would more than like to call in and ask a question, the phone number's 323-580-5755. And so as you transitioned from your learning center, what did that look like for you?
Well, it was on part of the family farm. And when my husband and I divorced, I actually stayed 5 years after that and lived in another home, obviously, but they were gracious enough to say, oh, continue on, right? By then we'd become very popular and had gotten a lot of regional attention. Initially, we were a little too far out there and the whole community wasn't sure what that was about. But anyway, in time, it was wildly successful, but I just felt like I was done. And what was really pulling me was, how can I help women like myself who were living this life and not feeling like it was their own, who had another calling perhaps that they had sort of shoved away? How is it that I could help those solopreneurs and entrepreneurs that wanted to really kind of ride the cutting edge and look at new ways of doing things? I had been through a lovely process over those 12 years and learned how to do that very organically, and miracles happen. I mean, things you just cannot make up, right? We did not have a typical business plan. So I had a real heart for that, but without the land, I wasn't sure how that was going to happen, because I thought I have to bring people to nature. And so I worked for other places for a while. I did other things. Nothing fulfilled me like my learning center had, or the experience I had just been through. And so I put everything away and decided to go a different way after I lost my home in a flood.
Wow.
And it was either that, and I was working as a music therapy researcher at the time, and I lost my job there suddenly when they did an unexpected downsize. So within a couple months, there I was, 58 years old, and basically homeless and unemployed. If I mean, I would have had a place, I could have done something, but I had a choice. It was a choice point, and I said, let's see. Oh, a whole new career and another mortgage, or a life adventure.
You were being sent a strong message that there were to be a change. You couldn't have a more strong message than that.
No, that's true. And working as a researcher, I had been in a sit-down job behind a computer, and not outside at all. I could not get to the woods fast enough after I got let go, and I went, woo, I'm free. And all I wanted to do was immerse myself in as much natural beauty as I could find. I sold what things I had left and packed up my Jeep Wrangler and went to the Asheville, North Carolina area to get to the Blue Ridge Mountains, where I knew no one. And I just wanted to see what was going to happen next.
That's so brave.
Well, you know what? People ask, they say that was brave. And it was a choiceless choice, Jean.
Oh, what a great way to put that, a choiceless choice.
I couldn't not do it. You know, I didn't have that moment between college and getting married and having babies where, you have a gap year. I didn't have any of that. I've never done that. So my curiosity was really out there. And I'm a firm believer things are always happening for us, not to us. So I went, how is this happening for me? I lost my home and my job, and I'm not going to sit here and moan about that. There's a reason. Okay, let's see what this is about.
A choiceless choice.
Yeah, all I wanted to do was just get into as much natural beauty as I could find. And that area of the country it's
gorgeous.
As diverse as you can get, because the glaciers pushed all the seeds for all these plants right into one area. And that's why it's so diverse.
And it's gorgeous. It is absolutely beautiful. So you found yourself in the Asheville area.
I did.
And so what did you do?
In the Pisgah National Forest. And I found a retreat center, and I asked if I could help in some way. And they said, well, sure, you can be our singing gardener. Well, you can be our gardener. And of course, then I sang, and then I was the singing gardener. And then I was the barefoot singing gardener, but I had so much fun. It was lovely. And I worked around the mountain at a organic bed and breakfast, and I just gardened. I sang and gardened, right? Sang and gardened.
Wow.
But people came to this retreat center from all over the world. It had been there many years, and it was built, it was RIMBY. It was so RIMBY, everything was natural and just these funky, beautiful buildings, and people would come there to slow down. And I went, oh, I could teach women's retreats here. And so the owner said, absolutely, you may. And I developed some programs and began teaching them there. And I started research project where I was interviewing them and finding out about their relationship with the natural world and their business and their calling and what they had pushed away and what, I was exploring that, and I went, holy mackerel, I'm not the only one.
Wow.
A lot of people feel this way. And of course, I was taking them out into the natural world, and we were building forts. We were playing like children in nature, and some magical things were happening in that. And then I decided to stay longer. So I built and lived in my own treehouse. I became a carpenter's apprentice, and I learned how to sling power tools while in a tree. And bathed in the mountain streams and journaled. And I would crawl down on my hands and knees. I couldn't get close enough to Mother Earth, and drink water. Can you imagine drinking spring water that hasn't seen the light of day in so long, as it first comes out of the ground right by the fiddlehead ferns? Yeah.
That's fantastic. So tell us what your treehouse was like. I know that people are going to want to know that part.
Oh yeah, well, it wasn't what you see on TV, like the master builders build. It was very rustic. I learned to fall trees in the forest, and you bring them down the mountain in the snow because they slide down better, right? And everything was out of, guess what? Found, natural, or repurposed materials. So there was no drywall, there was no, none of that. Blue jeans for insulation. Old windows from a schoolhouse were windows with, some of the old rolled glass in them.
Oh, wow.
My dining room table was a flat granite rock sitting on a tree stump, and the light, I did have electricity. I brought that in from a neighbor's little farm down the mountain a ways. So I had a light over my dining room table, and it was a rusty Weber grill lid. I rubbed it with linseed oil, and it looked like leather, and it hung by a
how fantastic.
This is so much fun. So all of those kinds of things. And I was absolutely in heaven. My creativity had just burst forth again. And the builder I was working with was having fun too, because he had been building $1 million mansions in Georgia, and he was
what a difference.
So it was just this time of deep immersion and creativity and laughter and fun and play, and continuing to study Mother Nature herself and understand and learn more what my illness had taught me about non-resistance. I didn't fight my illness. I loved it to death. Right?
And I can't remember, it was probably a podcast that I was listening to just this past week, and they were talking about people embracing the challenges that are happening versus holding on to and clutching the problem, but embracing it and letting it be. And that mindset makes such a difference in the healing process.
It really does. And I've studied this a lot. And those who, I worked for a time for hospice, and I was helping patients pass with greater ease. And really, I would sing, and of course they would relax, into that, and they would surrender into that. And that was what was helping them fight their fear of dying. And it was so beautiful and so rewarding. But I do remember the day I sat down and I said, no, wait a minute. If I can help people die with greater ease, I surely could help them live with greater ease.
Wow. So profound.
And that's what I love to do. And you're absolutely right. The more we try, the more we effort, the more we get caught in that, which we all do at times, the more we're trying to force and control things. And the more we can allow and watch and be curious. Curiosity was a big part of what I did with children. And that's one of the first things I think that we lose, not only the connection to nature, but our curiosity. And this is why play in the natural world is so like curiosity. Well, what happens if you do this? And
we become such serious adults.
Yes, absolutely. So absolutely. So yes, my work between hospice patients and all my work with children and the illness that I did and the treehouse adventure all of those I can see now is just helping me to get really clear on how I'm to serve and help others with what I've learned. And so here I am, and I've returned now from my treehouse adventure. My parents are in their 90s. I wanted to be near them in their final years. My mother in particular is not well, and this meant moving back to the Midwest. And I went, oh dear, I don't know, how's that going to work? And to disconnect from, are you kidding me? The Blue Ridge Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
What I did was I decided, okay, this joy, this beauty, I can carry that with me. So my treehouse lives in my heart, and so do those mountains. And here I am near Louisville, Kentucky, living in a 1910 carriage house.
Oh, how wonderful.
Because my parents live in different states. They divorced when I was young. Mom's in Ohio, dad's in Kentucky. I needed to be able to work from anywhere in the world. And I said, I'm going to go online and teach myself how I can reconnect people and nature through this little camera lens.
Was that before or after COVID?
It started before COVID.
Wow. Yeah.
COVID.
You were ahead of the curve.
I was, and all of the coaches that were out there training us how to do this were saying, you go back to your community and you gather people together and you network and you network. And I'm going, you don't understand. I don't know what day of the week I'm going to be in Ohio and when in Kentucky. So I'm going to do it right here. And I began inviting people to my living room, actually to my tree. I called it my tree house, right? Come to my tree house. I went and we would do interactive exercises and get them journaling and get them out into the natural world. And I realized I was helping them reconnect with their inner nature.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And because I do the voice thing because, well, the voice is how I opened back up to mine. And so many women feel blocked in their voices, particularly when they're doing their businesses. They need to speak. And of course, now more than ever, right? We're all converting to pivoting, as they say in the biz, to Zoom, right? And so opening up and feeling comfortable in expressing ourselves on camera, on stage, getting visible, all those things that are like very, very scary. But the voice is, I call it the doorway to the soul. And those who work with me not only get more confident in their speaking and can write with better ease. I help many writers open up their abilities to write. They're attracting their clients with ease because they're sharing from their hearts.
Wow. Yeah. And I think too, in this Zoom land that we're in, it's not just as when you're out networking with people, you're talking to them and sometimes at them, but you're not observing yourself. And so one of the things that Zoom has brought to us is that not only am I talking to you, I'm looking at myself talking to you. So we have to get used to observing ourselves and be comfortable with how we might not have realized we appear to others.
That's really brilliant. And what a beautiful, thing. Yes, the self-awareness of that and being able to witness one in the process. I say, I call it being able to see yourself in the movie of your life. Yeah.
Yes. And literally now, because we're
absolutely right. Yes. Well, it's happening for us, right? So we can learn these sorts of things. That's really brilliant. I appreciate that you can see that and articulate that so clearly.
And thank you. And it has to be hard too for us. I know it's hard for me to slow down with social media and so many electronics. It's really difficult to remember that we're supposed to be present more.
Yes. And, I think the slowing down, you can still be pretty active. I call it being and doing, right? Be more in touch with the essence of who we are. We can slow down and then suddenly there's nothing to prove, right? There's no need to hustle, drive, and strive. We have actually watched that play out in our world enough to know that it's not really working. People are burning out. And what else? And so, COVID's been this beautiful gift for us to slow down not only our doing, but our minds and our whole need to be on and performing our lives and proving something. And it's really, everyone's talking about authenticity now. I'm going, authenticity to me means being aligned with our inner nature.
Mm.
It's not so much that you're telling the truth and being all vulnerable and telling everyone everything you're thinking. That is a piece of it, because we're not hiding any longer. But I believe it truly means, and why we're so hungry for authenticity is it's like, what's the natural me?
Wow.
Who's me without all these masks? And this was what happened when I went off to North Carolina. I'd lived in the same town for 50 years, and I'd had more than one last name and all these different images, and I was mom and singer-songwriter and leader and all these things, right? I got to strip away all of those masks, all of these images, and show up where no one knew me. It was very freeing.
And you could meet you.
I could meet me. And so I always say that natural beauty that I was so hungry to immerse myself in was me.
Wow.
I found her. And I actually had a memory from when I was 8 years old, singing in my little treehouse in my backyard with my golden songbook, singing at the top of my lungs. And I just fell into the tree. And this is where I think I remember that. I remember just feeling so at peace. So when I got ready for my treehouse adventure, I went, what happened to that little girl? I think she was a lot wiser than I. What did she know that I have forgotten?
That's
And I
amazing.
literally went off to find her.
Wow.
So I help women that I work with remember and reconnect with that part of themselves that they have at one time or another probably known.
Wow. So is there a commonality between the women that you help, or are people coming from many different walks of life?
I have decided to help those who are solopreneurs or entrepreneurs because that's where I have the most experience and have played this process out in multiple ways. So it could be anyone, but I find that those women, because they're pretty daring souls, have some other things in common that make them really cut out for being pioneers.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's things they may have denied, things that they think they have to overcome, like, the fact that they can observe themselves in the movie of their life because they're more introverted by nature. And the world and society is saying, you have to get strong and build up your confidence. And then you get out there, and they're going, oh, that sounds horrible. And they think they're afraid. And I show them that they're wise because they're tapping into a whole new way of doing things. It's a different paradigm.
Interesting.
And
it becomes more intuitive then, correct?
It's very intuitive, and they're doubting their intuition, right? Many of them have also had experiences like I just described, and they've forgotten that part. So when I meet with them on Zoom, I use clarity, my guitar, and I build an energetic silo of sound, creating a space around us. And I invite them to come into that with me. And we just explore, and they have rememberings of times in their own life when they felt really deeply connected to the natural world and to this more relaxed part of themselves, and realize that that never really went away. It just got covered up and hidden, like it had for me in my illness.
Interesting. And so do you do this one-on-one, or are you meeting with them in groups?
I will be doing groups because I'm getting ready to release a book that I'm writing called She Leads from the Heart. And
we have to talk about that.
Yeah, but I have enjoyed most the one-on-ones, partly because I'm continuing my research, but partly because we can go into these very intimate places and they can tap in and have these rememberings. And when they do, it is absolutely magical. Something melts away and they're recognizing, oh my gosh, I have this way I can operate from this way. The energies in their body reverse like they did in mine when I healed my illness. And they're allowing versus trying and efforting and pushing, and things start to happen magically their income suddenly goes up double and sometimes triple, or they maybe realign their business and find, oh, I'm better served to this niche and serve these people. They are more apt and more willing to tell their own personal story, which is what people want to know, but they are past the part of feeling like, oh, I can't stand the attention on me. They're shifting from, I have to sell and make sales to keep my business going, to, oh my gosh, all I do is share what I'm passionate about. And I am speaking from what I call magnetic presence instead of a magnetic personality.
Oh.
And there's research now, there's so much research out now that backs up everything that I learned through my illness and what I've intuitively been teaching. When I work with my clients, we start with the voice, and they actually do recordings that we send back and forth to one another, and they hear their voices begin to drop into the resonant chamber of their heart. I call it the heart voice. And it becomes more full. It's less strained. It's less up in their head, and they're not trying to force everything. So they relax into that. So I don't teach typical voice lessons. I help people remember their naturalness and their inner nature.
Interesting. Wow.
And it changes everything. They start to attract more money and better relationships, because the heart, they have found, I believe it's the Heart Math Institute that's done such stellar work around the heart. The heart electromagnetically is at least 5,000 times more powerful than our brilliant, brilliant brains. So when we speak from our heart and are aligned with our inner nature, people feel it, literally feel it. Energetically. You know this, you've seen people where they walk into a room and everyone's like drawn to them. That's because they sense their authenticity. They're the real deal. And they are coming from a place of love and feeling that deep, deep connection.
So fascinating. And so, something that you said earlier, and I'm always amazed that there's terms around it, when grounding and forest bathing and all of those things that were, I'm just a small town girl from Maine, right? And that's all we did.
That's right.
Right. That is everything. So, that what you're able to, not only through voice and through song, but you're also able to help people understand the importance of getting your feet dirty and getting your hands dirty, and just having the playful, relaxing time.
Absolutely. Just that earthiness, right?
To release the inner tension.
Absolutely. It releases the inner tension without thinking about, now, what exercise do I need to do? It's just like, just go play, right?
And it couldn't be the furthest away from Peloton at all, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, I know. After I closed my learning center, and right after that, Richard Louv came up with nature deficit disorder and wrote the book, and founded the big organization. And I went, oh, I guess I was ahead of my time, and all of these things. It's lovely. It's ways that we're getting people out there. And it's more important than ever, because, we have a lot more things going on in that world, and people are feeling less safe than ever. So developing that relationship. Some of my clients who haven't been outside in a long time, I have them start with a terrarium sitting on their desk, right? Just to have some kind of contact, to realize that these little plants in here are alive.
What a great idea.
Right? Just connect in the simplest of ways.
And I think too, you must be, I'm assuming, or people are learning trigger points of recognizing their internal feeling. I know that when we talked last Friday was a tough week for me, because I came off of being outside. We were away. We were up in Zion for a week, and then I went back to work. And so, of course, I had to work a lot, right? And so by the time when we were talking on Friday, I was emotionally and physically exhausted, because I realized I honestly did not get outside all week long, not for anything. And I was not in control of my calendar, because I didn't take control of my calendar to ensure that happened. And by the end of the week, I was depleted. totally depleted. And I recognize that when I talk to you. I'm like, oh, wow, I should be talking with you right now. So it's just so important for people to realize they're setting boundaries themselves for how they need to respect their own needs.
Absolutely. And there's so much talk, and I love it because there's talk about self-care. Back in the day that I had my learning center, people weren't even talking about that yet. I developed a program called Nurture the Nurturers to help get nurses, doctors, all the caregivers outside. And they're like, we don't have time for that. No, we can't. And so I laughed. But self-care, we talk about it, and yet we tend to think about it as something we need to make time for, so that we can balance everything. And my way of looking at it is, if it's a part of your natural routine and you really trust that if you have that time, that downtime, and that relaxation and that playtime, that's a part of the work. It's all a part. It's all one big dance. You learn how to sustain your energy at all times, rather than extreme, like you experienced, right? Extremes of, oh, weekend Zion, and now, whoa, right? So it's regulated a bit more. And I mean, this is the key to all sustainability when you look at nature.
Being regulated. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it makes us more effective when we are supposed to be on task.
Absolutely. This is where excellence lies, because you come so in tune with your body. When you really tune into your inner nature and tune into your body, it tells you it never lies. It never lies. And it will trigger and help you recognize when you're falling into those old patterns of, oh, if I just get 3 more appointments in, you can recognize when you're starting to push everything and effort it, versus, oh, it has a natural ebb and flow, and I'll be more productive if I do that tomorrow morning. It's really beautiful. You begin to honor that, and everything seeks its own balance and centeredness in that.
Interesting.
That's how my body healed, right?
Wow,
it knew what to do when I got out of the way of it. And, that's what I believe. It's like, the earth doesn't need healing. It's like we allow it to do what it does naturally. We need to stay out of the way of it and love it, love it, love it. Right. And if you're coming from that place, you can do no harm to it.
Wow. Amazing. So tell us about your book.
Oh, yeah, I'm working on it. And it is the first of, I think, many. I am enjoying the process of writing. First of all, putting words on a page and painting pictures with words is easier than building a physical space on a 90-acre farm and writing grants and all of that sort of thing. It will be experiential. It will be a book that will be a companion to my first group program that I'll be doing with women. But my hope is, Jean, that it will be a book that others will pick up, others that I may never meet in my life, that have these rememberings. I tell stories, and I love little vignettes. And so my memoir is sort of like a spine throughout the book. And I use my own life and living as an example, but I call in memories of others and share stories that my clients have experienced, to help invoke that feeling and enrich that communication.
And those different stories are going to touch different people
in different ways. So I say, read it through the first time, and then after that, just pick it up anywhere, because certain things will resonate with you. And then there are what I call magnetic presence activations, which are little opportunities that I give you to go out and do something, or journal about something, or wonder about something. And they can look at first like unrelated. It's like, how's that going to help me be a better entrepreneur? But it's all interconnected, as we know. And so it helps you be that observer, that noticer of life, and that one who can really appreciate that you are here now, and that this body knows what to do, and nature knows what to do, and something greater is at play. It's impossible to do this work and not come out of it feeling like there's a greater plan, and even what we've just come through is somehow helping us remember to slow down, to respect all life, one another, all of those things.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you. And so, and I really appreciate your time here today. And it's been such a pleasure to talk with you. And I thank you for sharing your story and your insight and your energy.
Thank you. It's a joy to be with you, Jean. And I have an email. If anyone wants to email me,
Please, yes.
questions, I'm happy to leave that. My website is being reworked right now, but you can still see what I have there at pamelajay.com. That's Pamela and Jay.com. And my email is pamela@she-dares-to-lead.com.
Beautiful. And so when do you expect the book out, or is there a date yet, or is it too soon to project?
Hopefully before the end of the year, and I'm hoping actually for fall at some point. So I'm getting closer.
Perfect. And if people want to connect with you, to work with you, do they reach out, just email you, or reach out to your website?
Either way, you could do that. And I offer complimentary 20-minute sessions where I can come together with you on Zoom and do an energetic reading, a sound reading, because I can sense where there's resistance in your own body, where you may have little signals as to where you might be ready to unlock and discover more of your naturalness. And I record those little sessions, so they're kind of fun. And
wow.
I'm happy to offer those to anyone who's listening today on your beautiful podcast.
Well, thank you. Thanks again. And we'll make sure we put all of your contact information in the show notes. And is there anything that you would like to leave us with today? Any thought? I didn't warn you about this. So do you have any thought or anything that you'd like to leave us with?
I think, it's just that whole start to wonder what else is possible. The way things have been working, but what if there's a whole different way that things are happening? What is happening? Get curious, go out and ask that to a tree. Listen. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. What a joy. Thank you so much. Remember. Yes.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Jean. So glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad as always to have you. And so what words of wisdom do you have in your Rising Up segment today?
Well, I know we've all had the experience of walking maybe on a trail, maybe in your yard, or on just a walk in the neighborhood, and you hit that spot that's muddier than you thought it was, and you go to take a step and your boot stays in the mud or your shoe stays in the mud, and you keep going, right? We've all had some kind of experience like that, of being just stuck in the mud. And of course, we experience that in life and in business as well. So I have a little tool for you today for getting unstuck. It's called 9 Little Words to Change Your Results. And we are going to start with the first phrase of that, which is 3 words, 1 phrase, up until now. So up until now, my boot keeps getting stuck in the darn mud. I keep not being able to whatever. I think I'm not good enough or strong enough or whatever it is, the thought you're holding that's holding you back. Just put up until now in front of it and see how that changes it from a contracted kind of holding me back energy to a release. It's a release. It's an expansion of that energy. And then you have to decide what you're willing to do about it, Jean. So the second phrase is, I am willing. So what are you willing to do about it? I'm willing to hose my boot off and step around the mud next time and keep walking, whatever that means for you and your situation. And then you commit. The third phrase, no matter what. So these 9 little words have served me well, and I'm really excited to share them with you today, Jean. Hope it helps everybody stay unstuck.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And I've added it to my affirmations, because after I read your book, and I'm going to plug your book, 9 Little Words, and it made a difference. It makes a difference every day of how you think. And I appreciate the time and your inspiration that you put into words for the rest of us. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jean. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show is sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, It's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me, and if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.